Sainthood in the city.
What's good, y'all? Welcome back to Sainthood in the city.
So
Representing the real.
It's full center.
What is wrong with you, bro?
Man, I got Vince Carter. He got issues, man, dunking on people and stuff. Dunking on the Saints, bro.
All right, man.
Guess who's back?
So we are back. My name is Brandon
Speaking of
Morrell,
issues.
also known as the Symbol.
And my name is Bishop Joseph Espaillat. Alex, go.
You didn't say representing the real.
I did say it.
Yeah,
you
we
were
did.
playing with Vince
You were
Carter,
playing
bro.
with Vince Carter.
Can you just introduce yourself,
Okay,
bro?
hey, what's up, everybody? This is Alex Go, Take Dr. G. So glad to meet you. And to my left, the one with
This is why we got therapists here, bro. Because of people like
Talking
you.
about issues,
man.
man.
And quiet your issues for a second. What's up, everyone? Henry Virgil. I am back. I still have not left.
Unfortunately.
And so it's all right, bro. We're just gonna slide you off the couch in a second with Jesus.
Well, it's all right, though. I got Vince Carter. We dunking on people, bro.
But
All right.
nah, man. Welcome, everyone. So before we even get started, and before we even introduce the two people that are obviously here, sitting in between the four of us,
Our guests.
just want to mention that we're going to be covering sensitive topics, right, such as suicide, anxiety, and just mental health in general. And so as we dive in, we just want to welcome you. If you need to, just take a break, right? Walk away, take a walk if you need it. Take any sort of pause. Yeah, so we're just going to dive right into it. So to my left, to Bishop's left, we do have
The lovely and talented Miss Denise Peralta Tejada.
There you go.
Tejada. I said it right.
I'm doing it.
Okay.
No, we can't
I'm
do
doing it, bro.
and-
I'm doing it, bro. Tell me.
All right.
Tell me nothing about nothing.
Can I finish introducing
I'm
the
sorry.
guest,
Bro, you
talking about
definitely
issues,
got
man.
issues, bro. For real.
All right,
As soon as book him a session after this.
Yes.
And
Both of you.
Do that.
Yeah, actually, they need to tag team you. Both
My
of them need to see you.
therapist makes
But
good money off of me.
anyway, to my right, we have my brother Jesus. Jesus, introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And so, yeah.
What's your last name, Jesus?
I know he goes introduce himself.
Vargas.
Yeah,
Vargas.
All right, there you go. But they are no strangers to
Yes.
our
Yes,
podcast,
definitely. Yes.
and we welcome them back in season 3. Let me say this, right?
Absolutely.
Because we had a great session with them, season
Yeah,
2, on the, mental health issues,
Right.
and that's why they're back.
Yes.
And we're not cutting the camera this
No,
time.
definitely
Like, we're just
not.
gonna let it roll.
Yeah.
All right, even if Denise is late to her appointment. Just saying. Okay. So let's go.
So,
Don't
all
get
right,
a chocolate outside your head.
and-
Tell me you
and-
ain't too old.
All right.
Nah, and so like Bishop was saying, like he put it beautifully. I mean, we had the episode, but even as we were planning, right, like in prayer, we felt strongly that we needed to bring up mental health and address it
Absolutely.
again,
Right.
right? And so
Absolutely.
we invited again just the two experts, and some of the things that really, in doing research for this episode, we acknowledge that this generation is really the most, like to use the common word, woke when it comes to like the importance of looking after your mental health.
Yeah.
Yet suicide rates have continued to climb,
Yes.
right? And according to the CDC, despite everyone being aware, and despite every decade seeing a doubling in the expenditures and the spending of mental health resources in this country,
Shut up.
42% of this rising generation has received a mental health diagnosis already as we speak.
Boom, boom.
And so, again, we have Jesus and Denise here, licensed mental health counselors
Licensed.
that are Catholic, which I think is important, and we're going to get into that a little bit. But even in Scripture, there's several examples, right, of Jesus ministering and healing the sick, right? And even in Matthew 25, Jesus says, I was sick and you visited me, and speaking to the importance of the work that both you, Jesus, and you, Denise, do. And even then, right, in some of the miracles and the works that Jesus does, there are those that they say unclean spirits, right? Like in Mark chapter 1, he talks about a man with an unclean spirit who was crying out in torment and had symptoms similar to what a mental health professional can say is like schizophrenia or acute psychosis. And Denise, I want you to touch into this, right? So like even in Mark chapter 5, which is like literally the name of your, I guess, practice, I can call it, right?
Yeah.
Practice, Gerasene. I want you to dive into that a little bit.
So I did name my practice Gerasene, a mental health place, based on Mark 5, the verses 1 through 20, because most theologians agree that that man who was suffering from a demonic spirit, we didn't have the language back then as to what was going on, but they generally agree that he could have been suffering from schizophrenia, potentially also some kind of spiritual situation. We do believe that nowadays you could be suffering from both. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's one or the other. Typically, people who have mental illness tend to be more vulnerable to spiritual issues. It doesn't mean that it's one or the other. We don't know what happens first. It doesn't mean that because you're mentally ill, you will have a spiritual issue or vice versa.
Correct.
But you tend to be vulnerable to both when you have one or the other.
Yeah, and Bishop, if you as an ordained priest, like, could you speak to even, like we were talking about demonic possessions, and how even in that it's not just a priest by himself doing that and that.
So real quick before we go down that road, because I think 100% we should definitely need to talk about that. Something hit me. Psychology is a very new academic study in the history of studies. I want to say in the 1900s, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Sigmund Freud, right? He was the first. In saying that, because you said something about the language has grown. So it actually, if you go back to Vatican II, which we keep talking about over and over, the documents talk about, I want to say it's in Gaudium et Spes, don't quote me on that, but it talks about the use of social sciences and that there is a need for these things. And as church, and I like how you said that, you said it's not one or the other, it's both and. That we can look at the social sciences, right? We were talking about the family in a different episode, and we quoted a basic sociological undertone in that the family is the basic human structure. That's what the church teaches, but that's basically basic sociology. So in this case, what we're talking about is psychology and the growth of it and how that lines up in the church. So we can look at it, yes, it's good and so forth, but there's another side to this.
Right. And to go back to your point, Henry, what you were talking about when it comes to exorcisms, we know that there's been, let me see what word I use. A misrepresentation of what a real 100%. True exorcism is, especially because of Hollywood, and movies. But the fact of the matter is that religion or faith and medicine go hand in hand.
Yes.
Amen.
Right?
Yes.
And so, like, before an exorcism can take place, they need to see a primary care doctor and a mental, like a psychologist or psychiatrist or even a neurologist, right? So medicine plays an important part. So before people start throwing holy water and the devil starts turning his head and vomiting green stuff, whatever, I mean, those are the movies, people, right?
Look like Brandon at 12 a.m.
But demonic possessions are real. So I'm not downplaying that, and I'm saying that as a bishop.
Yes.
However, again, faith and science go hand in hand, and this is why, and we're going to get into this in this topic. I was talking about this with Henry earlier, that this is why, like, I really believe, and I say this with all love, Denise, you know this, that you are an asset, not only in the church, but in my life. Because there's many times where you and I have bounced things off of each other, and it's so beautiful. Like, I'm blessed. All right, and no, she's not going anywhere. She's at my parish. I'm her pastor. So before y'all even start, okay, she's staying, okay? But the fact that we can work together, right? That's a beautiful thing, because sometimes I'll have issues that I refer to Denise and vice versa, right?
And that.
Yeah, it's why I chose the name Gerasene, because what I'm trying to say in my practice is I'm treating the whole person, because I can't treat you if I can't just look at you emotionally. I also look at you physically, like, is there an underlying health issue? What is your spiritual condition, etc. So it's why the name.
It's a holistic approach.
Correct, a holistic
that's
approach.
What I like that. That's holistic.
And so in that same line of thought, because Jesus, you're in the process of starting yours, and give us the thought process, because you guys have two different approaches, but it's a similar thought process hearing from both of y'all. Can you walk us into what it is that your practice, the thought process behind it, and why, and all of that?
Sure. So like like you said, it's in the process, right? So praying that the Lord.
It's all right. We believe in the process.
Absolutely.
But the idea is, and we kind of touched on it the last episode, which is the idea behind the inner room. It's called inner room mental health counseling, and the concept is we all have an inner space, an inner sanctuary, where we retreat to, right? And we go to, and now that inner room could be messy. That inner room could be clear, clean.
Dang, that'll preach.
I haven't cleaned that in a bit.
Exactly.
I'm gonna pull out my phone, but I'm gonna take a note because that's food for a talk right there.
Yeah, right. We all have that closet we stuff things in, right? We all have that chair that sits on the side that nobody sits on, but there's a bunch of clothes on it. You know what I'm saying? We have the rug we sweep stuff under. You know what I'm saying? So
like my elliptical machine.
The elliptical machine.
My son's underneath his bed.
Yeah, underneath his bed.
Just gonna be honest.
You know what I'm saying? We all have our mess. Sometimes that mess is chaotic. Sometimes that mess is organized mess. You know what I'm saying? So we all know where our stuff is, even though it's messy.
I like calling that chaotic.
Chaotic. I
like
that.
Like chaos and order when it comes together. Chaotic.
Chaotic.
You know?
I like that.
Yeah, you can write that one down.
I might have to take that one from you. Yeah.
Learn that in ministry.
Yeah, so the concept behind it is that's what therapy is. It's me helping you find a way to go in there and kind of lay everything out, identify what works, what doesn't work.
Dang, that's good.
Throw out what needs to be thrown out, and put in the closet whatever needs to go in the closet, and put on your bed what goes on your bed.
Yo, that's good.
I like that.
And can I add for this? Because I mean, Jesus, I sent this to you. In the Catechism, it says conscience is man's most secret core and his sanctuary.
Right.
There he is alone with God, whose voice echoes in his depths.
Catechism of the Catholic Church, what part?
That is 1795.
1795.
He's writing his own talk.
Thank y'all.
I've been using this,
Appreciate
man.
y'all. Appreciate y'all.
He's writing his own talk.
One body. All right. One body.
And so I like this because like we're talking about like you're in the process of establishing your practice, and you've had your practice for a couple years now, right?
Yeah.
I believe. And so I want to speak to like in that Mark chapter 5, the story of where you got the name Gerasene from, right? So there's an interesting tidbit in there that I feel like not enough people focus on, and I want your opinions as mental health professionals in that. What was the people's reactions when they found out what Jesus had done, when he had driven out all the unclean spirits? They drove Jesus away. And so I want you guys to talk about just kind of like the treatment, if you will, that you experience inside of the church and from just your patients at large, maybe that aren't a part of the church, where, whether it's, fine, you guys might not be healing the person the way Jesus did, but you're, either helping them with a diagnosis or you're helping them, overcome it in a different way. I want you guys to speak to that in terms of like how the church treats you or your patients at large.
That's a very good question. For the most part, I think that it has been well received when people come for help or send other loved ones for help. It's been well received. They almost feel like a sense of relief, like, wow, what I've been experiencing or what my loved one has been going through has a name or has an explanation, even if not a diagnosis. While others want quick solutions and they don't get one, that might drive them away. And that kind of goes into another topic, so maybe I'll put it off as far as like what is bad therapy, because some people want like, tell me what to do to fix this, and and it's not that easy. I cannot tell you. I mean, I can give you tools and you'll be okay for a few weeks, but you'll be right back because I'm not a Band-Aid therapist.
Or like what's good?
I can give you a Band-Aid, but it's gonna come off in a few weeks and we'll be right back where we started, and I'm not gonna do that.
That's good.
I was just gonna add to that. Just like you'll get people coming in and they'll go, well, okay, so when will I be fixed?
Yes.
Right? Like what's the
because I got a wedding in 3 weeks. I need to be better.
I gotta go on vacation or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so as y'all are talking, something hit me because we're talking about the human person. And the human person from a Catholic perspective, Christian perspective is, so you have the human person, it's physical, but also spiritual. Inside the spiritual, there's a mind. This is St. Thomas Aquinas, so forth, but then there's some things added. Mind, intellect, and your will. Now, in those things, so these are in your soul, right? Dietrich von Hildenbrand adds some, he calls them affective sphere, the heart, and all the different stuff. It gives room. So one, notice what it is I did. I went from ancient to Dietrich is, again, 1900s, right? Yes. So you see that even the philosophy of the human person, that's what we're talking about, has grown, and it will continue to grow. In saying this, the psychology aspect of it is the psyche, that's what it's built off, the word psyche, in that is a part of the soul also. Mm-hmm. So whenever you're talking right now about like the healing and the different ministry, your approach to it, it's going in there, and whenever you're going into your room, it's a healthy room. And it's dealing with things that I've realized through the years, and I put words to this, is everybody has a perspective, a lens of seeing the world, even your spirituality. What happens is in the cleaning of it and dealing with some of those issues, it allows a more fullness of how God will work in that. Does it make sense?
It's the process itself. It's the process itself.
I went to like, I don't know, some of you guys, maybe you like, actually now I'm thinking about it, probably you, all of you, you've ever been in the country and you've seen a boat upside down. Mm-hmm. And if it's been there for a while, you know as well as I do, you don't, you laughing, because you don't just open it up. If you do, you're gonna get attacked, all right? What you do is you kick it, and it shatters, right? And then as you open it, you see all the stuff inside. And if it had left upside down, what would happen is those animals, the cobwebs, all the different stuff, it would have never got formed. It would have never felt, because it was exposed to the light. And so what happens is a lot of us don't realize, and you guys know this way more than me, but because of ministry and so forth, is a lot of people have not turned their boat upside down. A lot of people have not dealt with those dark places. And why do I respond this way? And what happens is trauma from different ways. There's positive trauma and negative trauma. Your body will, the boat will react some way, shape, or form. What mental health does, and what you guys are doing, is helping those people with the cobweb, helping all of us with our cobwebs. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Because I'm trying to think about like the average young adult who doesn't have any work and so forth.
I'm wondering, and you guys definitely
please
chime in on this thought. Like,
please.
And that image, I like that image. The if you just flip it, right? Could that be like a trigger that makes someone bug out? You know, could that be a similarity
trigger,
to,
or even the Holy Spirit? Boom, turn your boat. Okay, how do I deal with this? You see what I'm saying?
So,
you have to be gentle in therapy, and clients often want you to be aggressive, and they don't understand why you need to be gentle, why you need to take your time, and you kind of try to warn them like. You want to tell them you're not ready, and they don't understand why they're not ready. You don't want to, just kind of open a gaping wound, and they don't get why they're not ready until you have a really powerful session and they really aren't able to handle, and they're like, oh my gosh, like now I understand. You've probably had that experience too. And so you try to be gentle, but clients really they just want to be fixed, because we live in a society where it's like, everything's a quick fix.
Fix me.
You don't like a part of your body, go get it fixed. Everything is fast and quick, and so that's what they're used to, and they come to therapy wanting the same. But I always say, like, do you want lasting effects? Do you really want to get better, or do you just want to? Because you're not gonna get a quick fix here, at least like not with me. If you want lasting impacts, I'm your person, But if you want a quick fix, like that's not. At least that's not the business I'm in.
Yeah, I really love that. And I'm just going to tie in, like, for example, you mentioned inner room, and that's literally how you're naming your practice. And then, right, that quick fix, that instant gratification. And it, in a way, it reminds me of Jonathan Haidt's book, right, about the anxious generation and like literally the great rewiring of childhood, and talking about social media and smartphones, right? Because that is the culture, that is like a lot of the groundwork, that foundation that we're building in ourselves through social media and through cell phone, is we are forming these addictive habits and we're making them a norm. And we're becoming impulsive because we could be doing anything in the world in our lives. I've seen it, I am guilty of it, right? Even if, and the reason why I mentioned inner room, because even in that inner room, are you bringing your phone to your inner room?
Yeah.
Right?
That's
and
good.
and it's like you could be doing anything, even praying, and then a thought comes into your mind. Well, let me check my phone really quick. God, I'll be right back. Like, and before we know it, like for example, my iPhone tells me, and it's a reality check. It's very humbling on a weekly basis, how long I've been on my phone for that week.
Yeah.
And like I've gotten notifications where it says like 7-8 hours daily, and I'm like, whoa. Like you don't realize that you're forming your subconscious to be on something that is not necessarily healthy, to be on a screen for 8 hours a day. Like imagine all of you guys with your busy lives.
That's a little.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But
Compared to a lot of people.
but
yeah.
imagine I were to invite the 5 of you, not excluding myself, to say, hey, add this to your daily routine for 8 hours.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. No, so again, the growth of psychology and also the growth of knowing how the human brain works has been, over the last 20 years, has been phenomenal because, just the growth in how we use electronics, so forth, MRIs, all the different stuff. I read a book fairly recently, Jenny Allen, is called Get Out of Your Head. And it talks about your brain. It forms like, in the way that I'm just using my language, it's like basically when you think and do something over, right, like a habit, what happens is you're forming a kind of road in your brain with synapses and so forth.
Neural pathways.
And I couldn't think of the word, neural pathways. What happens is subconsciously, because you've done this road, you're always going to go back to the road. I was thinking about this in driving, right? Or walking. Sometimes you might be driving or walking and you've gone 1 billion times and you got to go to a new place, but you're not paying attention. You got to go to a different place, but you end up in the place that you're used to. You're like, what the heck? Why did I make that turn?
Muscle
Now I gotta go
memory.
back. Because
Happened to me
your
recently.
body, your roadway, the way that you think, the way that you react is normally reacts this way. And that's how I've thought about, like, habits, phone, even responding to trauma, all the different stuff, the neural pathways. And this is basic science. So the book has a lot of studies in it. And it just shows like, hey, this is how the human person works. And we do this subconsciously, but we're training our brain. The teachings of the churches, that's basically what a virtue is, right? Aristotle, right? Like, and this is a perfect example of like the church will never do away with reason, with science and so forth. They go hand in hand.
Right.
It's just now we have a better understanding of what's happening, but the church does teach this. That's what a virtue is.
And even
continually to do things.
And even the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit, right?
Amen.
They're meant to be habits forming
Right.
you to become holy. And so, Jesus, I want you to, if you can, speak on a little bit about that, like forming the subconscious and the dangers
Please.
that, for example, social media and cell phones have. Like, for example, Jonathan Haidt, he summarizes his book, a lot of what you're saying, right? And we touch on it in another episode as well, is, we do a great job protecting ourselves from the real physical world, but we do a really poor job and we underprotect ourselves in that electronic world, if you will, that
Amen.
online world.
Yeah.
I'll even go a step further.
Please.
I think it's not only. I don't think it's only habits. I mean, I think this is stuff that's like ingrained in your brain. There are literal
Vices also.
things
Yeah.
happening as these neurons are firing in your brain, right? And you are creating new neural pathways, and that's what therapy is, right? I think people misconstrue that therapy is just like a conversation, but it's not. It looks like a conversation, but we are literally trying to rewire your brain. Like that's part of it. And just to touch on
Dang,
the
that's a
social
good way
media,
to put that, man.
Yeah. It's not just a conversation. We're not just going back and forth talking here, right?
Yeah.
This is deeper than that.
And it's something that you can't see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? So like you can't see the
You can't see your subconscious.
the neural pathways,
Yeah.
right? You can't see it. And so that's hard,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's difficult.
But that's why it takes time,
Yes.
right? That's just like,
That's
it's
why-
a rewiring of something that has been functioning this way. And you're literally trying to make a new neural pathway for both a virtue, right? A good habit, and a vice, a bad habit.
Right.
I tell my clients all the time that we are quite literally fighting brain chemistry. That I use that phrase all the time because they're like, but what do I do? But what I do, I'm like, we are doing it. We are doing it. But again, it's that desire for like, I want this to happen fast. I want to be better tomorrow. And they don't realize that they are, I see it because I'm on the outside watching them. I am seeing their progress.
That's
so
good.
a lot of times I remind them, I'm like, look, 2 months ago you were doing this and today you're doing that, you know. And they're like, oh wow, you're right. Like they don't see it. I'm seeing their little baby steps. So like I try to remind them, I try to highlight for them their progress because they're unable to see it. So I'm like, remember, we are fighting brain chemistry. We are literally rewiring your brain and changing these habits because it takes time. And so it's encouraging them.
I mean, just one more thing on that.
No, please go ahead.
I think it's again, it's deeper than just habits because these are things that have been learned, not just because I want to do it, right? They're things that have been learned to keep ourselves safe, right? They're coping mechanisms.
Yes,
bro,
I had that word in my mind.
Right? Like these are things that we do to keep ourselves safe, to create safety. And so you're telling me, I'm walking into this virtual session or even in person and talking to this stranger, right? Because I don't know this person for the first time, right? I don't know this person about the things that I've been doing to create safety for myself. And this person is telling me that I got to go a different way, right? And this person is introducing a new neural pathway, right? And so like my old neural pathways have been coping mechanisms to keep myself safe from repeating the same thing. I touched the stove and it was hot. I don't want to touch it again, right? I don't want to go anywhere near the stove. I don't want to get burned again.
And that's a whole nother topic, right?
Well, bringing them to that,
but like some
overcoming fear
because of the neural pathway, they actually enjoy the pain and so forth subconsciously. This is one of the reasons why, like gossip and so forth. I don't like gossip, but you're around people who gossip. Therefore, you gossip. You like you're used to that. You enjoy it. This is why we use the word toxic for this. You're toxic. You self explode and so forth internally because you're used to it. Your neural pathways have enjoyed that, and you want to be around that subconsciously.
And it's like become comfortable for you also. That's a whole nother thing.
And even like the word toxic, like think about what you're saying. Like you're poisoning yourself.
100%. And it's a total side note, even in today's world, like teens, young adults say like, I love it, I am. Like, no, that's not good, bruh. Just even if it's a norm, I want to make sure I say this, even if it's a norm in our own homes to react and see these kind of things. Right. I was thinking maybe this is just hypothetical, guessing per se. I was thinking about what you guys do. It's almost like, and it does show the importance of what St. Ignatius calls the self-examine through the day, right? So this is what I mean is, at lunchtime, what I'll do is I will stop, ask for the Holy Spirit, and I would think about my interactions with people through the day. And if there was something wrong, right, some drama or something, I'll ask the Holy Spirit, where did that come from? What was the reason why I reacted this way or said this or something along those lines? What I'm hypothetically proposing is like what happens in therapy is it's a self-examine with somebody helping you lead in that. Does that make sense? And again, I just thought about this right now. Maybe this is 100% off, but I was just trying to find some words for the interacting of how these things work, right? What do you guys think? Please jump in and so forth.
It's grounding, it's mindfulness, right? It's like that is the moment that you're taking that step back and grounding yourself to where you are. And as Christians, right, we have the Holy Spirit. Like we have the Holy Spirit. We have the Holy Spirit. And I can't tell you guys enough how much the Holy Spirit shows up in my sessions, right? I'm sure
every session.
Right? And sometimes I'll have clients coming back and they'll be like, bro, like you said this thing last week and you said this, and this. And I'm like, I said that? Like, I don't remember.
Every time.
I don't remember it. So the Holy Spirit shows up in such beautiful ways in therapy. And mindfulness and grounding has been proven. These are theories that have been proven to work, right? These empirically proven, right? Mindfulness and grounding being finding ways to be present. And so as Christian therapists, right, as Catholic counselors, we employ that concept of prayer and spirituality through that process.
So
I think you're gonna go where I want to go.
I'm gonna go there right now.
I want to talk about spiritual direction because
total side note. I love it when Bishop does that. He goes, like, "I'm gonna go there."
No, I'm gonna go there right now. And I hear where you're definitely. I love spiritual direction. I mean, anybody knows me.
Amen.
I don't think you could ever say in my 21 years of priesthood that I have not beat the drum on spiritual direction and how important that is. And this is where I'm going with it, right? Because I want to go physically, I want to go mentally, and then I want to go spiritually.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah.
For example, and correct me if I'm wrong, please. You're not gonna get jacked and buffed in a day. You go to the gym, and you told me this the other day, Alex, because I know you take your body very seriously, right?
Yes,
it's
sir.
like, you know,
I look like The Rock for a reason.
you go to the you go.
Y'all ain't had to laugh at
you know,
that, man.
you go to the gym, right?
Yeah,
you go to the gym, and then you overwork yourself.
Absolutely.
And then you don't want to go back.
Overtraining.
And
yeah.
I do this all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, I'm going to go in, I'm going to do 45-minute cardio, I'm going to lift
Yeah,
weights. And then
absolutely.
the next day, it's like, yo, I don't even want to get up out of bed. Right? Because I overdid it, right?
Yeah,
So one, physically, right? Mentally, again, we want to fix ourselves. We want it to be instant. We want it to be immediately, right?
Yeah.
Thirdly, spiritually. Well, if I don't get that Jesus high, or I don't, get that emotional,
That's
vibe,
good.
which we've spoken about too many times,
Right.
Like, God isn't answering my prayers. Excuse me, it doesn't happen overnight. You know, I mean,
God is beyond our
Abraham, God
feelings.
spoke to him pretty late in life.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? The last time I checked, Jesus took 30 years to prepare for his mission. So my point is, right, and getting into this and then leading into spiritual direction, and I want to hit on another topic, which we want to get to as well, with the rewiring of the brain, because I'm really following this, right? But how do we convince parents, right?
I want that to get
Especially with right now the whole cell phone issue, because it's destroying us. I'm gonna say it, all right? I'm gonna be that guy. Send me the hate mail. Do whatever you want, because whatever, all right? But the fact of the matter is, I've said this to parents, and parents freak out, Jesus.
So,
Like, you know,
But
this,
again, like
they
in the Gerasene
they-
story, the treatment that they gave Jesus.
Stop.
So
You know,
let's
they're
do-
like, what do you mean I have to take the cell phone away from my kid?
Yeah.
But they've always had it. And
So
so,
let's-
how do I, okay, let me speak concretely. Let me speak
Please,
to me
go ahead.
as a priest, as a bishop.
Go ahead.
How do I, right, convince, promote, what science is saying, like Dr. Jonathan Haidt. You know, by the age of 14, we speak about that gray matter area, right? With young people, right? Young people have that
That's
gray
true,
matter.
man.
We were talking about that
No,
today.
that's
But,
real.
you know, you're giving a child a device
An adult
that is
device.
powerful, right?
Yeah.
And I compliment you, and I'm gonna say it because I know you, Denise, but like, you know, your oldest son, Matthew. You know, I know that it hasn't been easy for him. And Matthew, if you're watching this, you know
I
you're
got
my boy.
4
I
boys.
love
I get
you,
that
bro. You're
argument all the
amazing,
time, man.
right? But you know, he has to. It's countercultural.
Absolutely.
It's countercultural. So my point is, please jump in. You know, how do I, as a bishop, as a priest, as a leader of the church, tell and convince parents, like, we have to do better with this? Right? And again, I don't want to sound like I'm beating you down. I don't want to sound like I'm accusing you of anything. No. It's just I'm tired of dealing with our young people, and the problem being at home. The problem being mom and dad. And I don't, again, please, I'm not condemning. I'm not putting down. Don't misinterpret my words. But the fact of the matter is, you need help. And I'm hearing Denise whisper in my ear right now. It's like, they need support. You know, they need to be accompanied. No, I'm being serious. Like, you know, this is why I love it, you know. But how do we do this better? How can we make this better? And speak to people in regards to where we are.
I think the short answer is community, right? Just being in those
Ooh, that's
spaces.
good.
Thank you.
Community.
I think that's the short answer. I think we're made for community.
That's good.
I'm sure we'll dive into that as far as like depression goes. Like, community is so important for things like that. But I think, like, even further, this is deep. I keep going back to to how deep this is, because Erickson's stages of development is the first thing that comes to my mind.
Who? Erickson stages of development.
Eric Erickson.
My mind went to
go ahead.
book.
Elaborate on that, please.
So Eric Erickson is coined the stages of development, right? And the concept is that we have, as humans, we hit different stages as we go through our lives, right? Adolescence is the one that stands out to me the most, right? Which is, that's the stage where we are supposed to build our identity, right? That is the identity stage. And the idea is that, the way I explain it to my patients is, if you experience a trauma or something during a stage, you are stuck there until you're able to go back and
Until you
heal
resolve
that,
it.
right? So that's why we have so many young adults and adults walking
That are
around not
adolescents.
knowing who they are.
Yes.
Some of them are still in the
I mean, I
baby
think that's
stage.
the biggest thing in today's
And-
society.
and-
You have to
and-
resolve it
Yeah.
before you can
Right.
move on to the next stage.
Yeah.
And people, I'm gonna say it, people literally stuck in mom's basement,
Infancy.
like the
yeah.
stereotype,
No, that's
right?
real.
Like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
people stuck in there
Yeah.
because they have not matured past that adolescent stage.
Amen.
But
Right.
are parents at fault for not allowing their children to develop? You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think
Yeah, there's
Hold
a
on.
few plays on that.
Yeah, a major part of that is the way we understand our development stages. Now, let me go a little bit deeper than that,
Okay.
which is social media and our phones are literally prematurely bringing up these stages, right? So in the past, we've struggled with, well, this person is stuck in that stage. We got to go back, right?
So it's making them mature faster.
Correct, right?
Except they're not maturing.
Right. There's the autonomy stage of development. These kids who are coming up with iPads in their hand, basically being born with iPads in their hands, right, are being able to control their world in ways that we were not able to have access to when we were kids, right? So all of
Because I was the remote control. That's why.
right.
You know what I'm saying? Literally.
you just hit a
know,
nerve,
you
bro.
understand?
Be in a whole other room.
No,
whole
but
other room.
The kid is able to stop or play Coco Melon, right?
Right.
But fact, I had to get up and change the channel.
And fix the antenna.
a whole other
with aluminum foil.
I'm doing yoga. You know what I'm saying? Like, put your arm up.
So it's not even that they're maturing faster. It's just the maturing process is being distorted.
Yeah, so they're entering a stage that they're not ready for.
Right.
Yeah,
But
what
they're
I-
not
I was
actually
Information
thinking
is being
about that. I need to
introduced
clean up what I said.
also that they're not prepared to handle.
Correct, that they
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
process yet.
I was thinking about what I said. I think I need to clear up. Maybe a better way of stating it is being exposed to a world that's exposing them to develop faster, but they're not.
Correct.
So having to deal with that, right? The comparison thing, that's the modern language. You're comparing and so forth, right? But again, subconsciously, you may think like, no, I'm happy the way that I am. Okay, well, why? You know, have you ever?
So earlier
thought
we
about
were
that?
talking about how social media is like access to all the things you didn't know that you didn't have and wanted.
That's
because
facts.
before, we grew up, I'm an 80s baby, so
Yeah.
I didn't know that there were all these things out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Or you can kind of dream of it, but you didn't really know. Now you know with certainty, like all these trends and places and opportunities. Now you know with certainty, and all the people that have them and are experiencing them that you don't have. And so now you're seeing them and experiencing them through the lens of others.
Can I give a word? Hold on. Can I give
So
a
you
word?
have the ability to compare yourself.
Just can I give
want
a
you to-
word
go
to
ahead.
that? Just it's innocence, right? Because you're innocent if you're not
Correct.
exposed to those things.
Correct. Like you can
Yeah.
only imagine it, but you don't know it, so you're okay.
Right.
Facts.
Yeah,
Right.
and I want you to expand a little bit on that, like maybe in terms of what you've seen, both of you, in terms of your patients, because like a lot of that is what that's contributing to the general hopelessness, right, of kids is the comparison, right? Then we have the self-absorption with the front-facing camera, and it's me. Like I've heard you preach about that. Me, selfie, the email, me.com, like, and then like the
Don't judge me.
the
Me
addictive
dot me.
behaviors that we spoke about, like making it a norm to be on something for 9 hours a day, and then the comparison or the anxiety behind. I uploaded a selfie, I only have 2 likes, and it's been 9 hours, but yet my friend will post a selfie and he, whatever, will get 12 likes in 20 minutes, but yet I posted it yesterday and I have 4 likes, and then the anxiety behind that, and then like for example, people then going and seeing their inner circle the next day or the following day. Like speak about the impact on their psyches that you have seen.
Second, I just want to make sure, because we're talking about social media, we're not demonizing social media. I want to make sure I say that we're not demonizing the phone. What we're talking about is a virtue is knowing the balance between the good and the bad and moving towards the good. So what we're talking about, I want to make sure that we say this is, no, everybody should not throw their phones away per se.
That would be a nice thing,
Yeah,
though.
some
I
of
was
you
gonna
might
say-
need to.
I
Some of
wouldn't
you
mind.
might need to.
That might be a bad thing.
I wouldn't mind.
Hold up. But what I'm saying is, we are giving our teens an adult, something that exposes
Device.
them to an adult or child. And there needs to be some prudence. I like that word. There needs to be some prudence, especially as a parent, of what it is that we're allowing to come into our own homes.
Well,
and to come into the inner sanctuary.
Well, yeah,
of our
and I think
children.
we've mentioned it. Like, it's all about discernment. That, like, that's the word.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
you need
Go
to
back.
discern, especially
Yeah.
as you know, the caretaker of your home and your family and your kids. You need
Yeah,
to
yeah.
discern what you're giving them.
So go back.
So
to
two
what you-
two
yeah.
words, because is the one you said, the anxiety they're having, and then there's also a physical reaction. I know I've read and seen things like the actual liking and
physical,
like what
yeah.
is that? Those are two different separate
releases
things. But I want to
dopamine,
back up to those things because I don't want to speed past that, and we don't get that from you guys.
Just on the self-absorption part, like the other day, I was actually talking to Ivan, my husband, who's back there.
Shout out to
Yvonne.
Audio Geeks. All right. The sound man.
I realized, and maybe I'm the only person who like doesn't do this, but people actually post stories. I feel so old even saying this, but like it's a thing. Like people are constantly going back to their stories to see who sees it and who doesn't see it, and that's like a really big part of their day. And their story and their experience. And I have clients constantly talk about, you know, and I know they saw it because of this and that, and I started to realize like a pattern of multiple people talking about, and I know they saw my
So they
story,
see.
and when they saw my story, and it was 3 hours after they saw my story that they told, and I'm starting to see that, I'm like, wait a second, this is like a thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, people actually go back and check, and
It's the
I've
craziest
never
way
done
attention.
that. Like I
So what it is.
genuinely, and maybe innocently or stupidly, I don't know, I've never gone back to see who looks
What's
at
the
my
validation?
stories.
It's
Yeah.
craving attention and validation. Yeah,
Well, it's
you're
the
right.
validation.
But I've seen
Yeah.
it like across the board with probably most of my clients, and I'm like, wait, people do this. This is a thing. People are going back, and it's such a part of their
I don't even know how to do
life experience. Like it's part of their life experience. Like it's part of their relationships. It's part of how they judge someone's belief of them, or how someone feels about them,
Yes.
or someone's choices are based on them going back to see their story and their response or time lapse of how when
Right.
like it is such
Yeah.
a big deal. And so
You said something
self-absorption.
about being old and mentioning this. It has nothing to do with being old.
Well, I mean, I just said because maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
No. That's not what it is. What it is you're analyzing the why. And you're at a point in your life where you're doing that on a regular. That's a part of your job per se. And this is, again, to kind of go back to the self-examine thing. Why that is so important is why. Why did I go back after this and so forth? Why did I look at my story? Why did I check and see if this person, what's the real motive? I think that people are scared to ask themselves that question.
We're
Yeah,
addicted to
initially
acceptance
it-
and validation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
initially it wasn't a thing, but when I started to notice, and this
Yeah.
has been months now,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, everyone is talking about, like it's part of their daily conversations, like
Yeah.
it's a thing.
That's wild,
That's when
bro.
I was like,
Yeah.
wait a second, this is
Yeah.
a thing. Almost everyone does this.
Yeah.
Well,
That's wild.
is it a different way of what I'm thinking about is like, and let's use the developmental stages thing, right? Of like be the teen who walks into the lunchroom. You know what I'm saying? And it's
Yeah.
like, who's paying attention to me, who's not?
Yeah,
How
yeah.
are they reacting to the outfit I'm wearing and who's not? Like
Yeah.
it's just a different platform or different medium of how
Yeah,
that
that's
experience
about
is
the
happening.
same.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't think that pops up out of nowhere. I don't think
Yeah, I agree.
that we're like
Yeah.
out
I
of
agree with that.
nowhere just because social media exists. Like now, all
I
of a
agree.
sudden, we want to check our story 50 times, right? I think it's deeper than that, right? Like
Absolutely.
I think that has to be ingrained in you to desire that, to pursue that, right? So if we're not, if our parents are
Thank
not
you.
at home, are not creating an environment where you are accepted, validated, loved, right, supported, all those things, then we're gonna look for it elsewhere, right?
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to add, like about that, like for example, just because you literally mentioned the example of walking into a lunchroom, right?
Right.
Like a big component of that, right, with the advent of social media, is the fact that now that walking into a lunchroom, right, now it's happening virtually and it's happening 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
That's
Right?
a good point.
Where they're not, at least me, right, growing up, like I wouldn't walk into my home seeking validation. But like now I could be in bed, right, theoretically, and like seeking validation. Like at times I'm literally supposed to be sleeping at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And then that's where, like, in my opinion, you guys can chime in way more than I can. That's where like something like an anxiety will develop, right? Because it's like literally even at moments that you're supposed to be sleeping, and you can speak about the importance of sleep on your mental health, right? Even at moments that I'm supposed to be sleeping, I'm thinking of someone watching my story or liking my post, whatever the case is.
Okay, can we back up? Because we use the word anxiety again. Let's define it. Let's actually talk about that. Let's dive into that a little bit because it's coming up in different angles.
Yeah. Even in movies
These
and
professionals.
So forth. Inside Out.
That's what I mean.
I just want to answer Bishop's question before we do that, if that's okay. I think, what do we do with these parents? I think that because of the counterculture, like, for example, yes, we chose to give, our son a cell phone. He is 14. Do we want him to be completely outcasted, and not be able to communicate with his friends? No. So we did opt to give him a phone. But is it controlled? Absolutely. So I think it's finding that balance. So for parents, it's helping them find a balance. Like, okay, you want him to have a phone because you want to be able to communicate with them. Help them have a balance. Like, you should be monitoring that phone.
Yes.
You cannot hand them a phone and just walk away. That phone needs to be controlled and monitored by the parent 1000%. You should be able to remotely lock and unlock that phone. You should be able to remotely set limits
100%.
on every single app.
And having software.
And and block certain content. You should, as a parent of any minor,
100%.
be able to block
attention.
and unblock any content that you wish. You should be able to set limits on screen time and anything that you desire. As a parent, you should be able to do that. So fine, give them the smartphone, but not unlimited.
So I want to go back also. I'm glad you did. I was going to wait till the end, but you said this. You were like, hey, I want to jump on what I want to expand on what we can do for parents, and we'll come back to anxiety. What I have found is, and this is why even in the family thing where we made these statements, but I think we need to be more specific, and this will get ahead of a lot of issues, is at some point in time, you have to define a mission statement. If you work for a company, they have a mission statement. If you get in trouble with the mission statement, if you get in trouble in that company, they pull you in and they say, hey, these are the guidelines that align to our mission statement. And because you didn't do that, therefore you're in trouble. So because we believe in our mission statement, this is what they're saying. Because we believe in our mission statement, I have to do this. Well, apply that to the family per se. What do you stand for? What is your mission statement? And do your children know this from birth? What do we stand for? You guys heard this the other day. My son was up here. I was like, what's Papi's number one job? So I've realized whenever it comes to issues that phones, different stuff, I'm not playing. I will fall back on what is my job here?
To get him to heaven.
Get him to heaven.
Yep.
So then you see how, and this is one, especially when it comes to phones, is so again, parents, this is for parents, the mission statement, but the other part to that is, hey, it's not that I don't trust you. My sons have heard this countless times. It's not that I trust you. I trust you, bro. I don't trust people on the other end of that. I don't know those people. I want to know your friends because I'm gonna be real with you. I want to see you go to heaven. I want to make sure I know who it is. What makes you think that there's anything different, especially when I have no idea what's on the other side of that? Right. Every time that I have told that to my sons for numerous reasons, and again, I have 4 boys, every time they're like, okay, got it. Because now you're making clarification of why I'm addressing this behavior. You may not like it now, but I guarantee you, you're going to appreciate it later on because I want to see you get to heaven. So the idea of a mission statement, per se, what are we about?
A goal, right?
A goal, right? What's the goal? Another way of saying it.
What's the goal?
What's the goal? Sorry, in leadership, that's what mine works. But also, hey, processing that with them. Hey, look, I've dropped the ball about when it comes to the phone. My sons will tell you, I come to them, I dropped the ball. I didn't know. Yeah. I apologize, but I do know now.
Yeah, we're going to address it.
And we're going to deal with this as a family because I love you.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Joshua when he's with the Israelites. right before they go into the promised land, they've known about God. They've been walking around for 40 years, hearing about this. Their ancestors knew about God. But he says, hey, when we go into this land, as for me and my house, as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord.
Yep.
He's making a mission statement. He's making, this is our goal here. We're serving.
Right.
So why? He wants you to know when we walk in here, don't forget what this is about.
Yep.
And I think that parents as a whole, and for a number of reasons, right? Like, oh, they're too old now, or I don't truly understand. You're right. You don't. And you don't have to. That's the beauty of this. You don't have to understand everything. This can be all new, but you can say, hey, I didn't know. I dropped the ball. And I will tell you, young people will appreciate that way more if you just say that, and then just come back and just be like, hey, I do know now, and I know it's been going this way, but because I love you, and you gotta vibe with me. I love you, and you gotta understand. You know I love you.
I'm sorry,
I gotta make
and I
these
love you,
decisions.
yep.
I'm sorry, well, but my friends, right? My friends, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure you've heard this, right? I remember they were very, actually, no. This is actually my youth ministry side that I've heard that. I haven't really heard that from my boys. My friends are doing this. But I'm like, they're not my kids. No, they ain't got nothing to do with me. I love them, you know what I'm saying? But my priority is you. You feel me?
Yeah, so addressing it in the parents also first, I guess.
That's where I was going.
Right?
Sorry.
It's like, because the parents might have the tendencies, the anxiousness on their phones.
Yeah,
and that's trickling down.
Modeled behavior.
I was actually going to get to that, but
modeled that behavior.
Unfortunately, they may not realize it themselves because they're so stressed out because of everything else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
and so
look at bitch. Look at bitch.
Anxiety.
Brandon, it's funny because that's a really good point. One that I wanted to make is that I forgot his name, but there was a psychologist that he was being interviewed, and he was like, as a pediatric psychologist, a lot of, like, when people ask me how do you address anxiety, my approach is start with the parents. And so with that, because I Brandon, you asked a question and then we didn't get to answer it, but like, Jesus, as the licensed mental health counselor, I would like for you to, tell us or expand a little bit on what anxiety is, because it's a big word we throw around, and it's rampant, but let's define that.
Yeah.
It's even in the songs.
I think we use a lot of mental health disorder words too loosely. You know what I'm saying?
Say that again. Say it again.
Look into that camera.
Look at the camera and
say that again. Right there,
I think
bro.
we use a lot of mental health disorder names too loosely. I think
Self-diagnosed.
everybody got PTSD now.
Trauma.
Everybody got OCD.
Yes.
Everybody has
Everything
all the
is trauma.
things. Right?
ADD, ADHD.
Everything. It's everything, right? And not everybody that says they have something has the thing. You know?
Right.
And maybe they have something else, and that's making that other thing worse, right? So that's I think super important. I think now today I'm super glad that we're having more conversations like these on social media, and you'll see it in the media in general. But I think that everybody swears they're a mental health professional. I'm sorry. Not
Yes.
They go on Google and they start self-diagnosing.
Just because they're on TikTok, don't make them a professional.
So
WebMD.
I think it's a major issue. I think it's a major issue. Not everything can be found on WebMD.
I agree.
Like not everything. Don't stop diagnosing yourself. Stop.
And typing in the wrong symptoms.
And not just that, something that blew my mind that I didn't even know was something, and we're not going to dive too deep into it, but making the point, go to the appropriate people, not just don't self-diagnose,
right.
but go to the appropriate people.
Professional.
And I'm not going to go into it, but like, it just blew my mind, the fact that even ADHD medication, you can get it from just a regular pediatrician. Like, you should be going to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. You should be going to a mental health professional. Not going on Google or the wrong type of doctor just because they're a doctor.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Correct. You can do way more harm than good. But to answer the anxiety question, I think the way I define anxiety to my patients is anxiety is a response to a perceived threat, right? It's the body's response to a perceived danger, right? There's a threat, we are responding to that threat. I don't know if you guys have heard the term fight or flight before.
Yes, of course.
Right? It is the body trying to protect itself from a potential danger. Now, there are dangerous moments, right? Like, for example, if a lion were to walk on this stage right now, like we would have certain reaction to that.
Oh, yes.
Right?
I'm living. I just want y'all to know I'm living.
I know.
Some of y'all might get tripped.
He might try to
Alex
wrestle it.
ain't
Henry, you dying, bro. I just want you to know I love you, Henry. I will pray for you, but you dying, bro. I'm
Alex
gonna
over
trip
here
you.
throwing hands with the lion. Like,
Go.
Your ears are getting
Say what's up to
first, bro.
Mufasa. You know what I'm saying? I'm half joking, bro.
So we'll have
You know?
different reactions, right? There's arguments that it's like fight, flight, fawn, freeze, right? But for the sake of this conversation, fight, flight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the things that would happen is like we may start shaking, our heart may start racing, our mind may start racing, right? And those are all things that may keep us safe in that environment that will allow us to fight or flight, right? Start throwing stuff at the lion, right? Start scrapping, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I wouldn't throw Brandon. He's a chicken nugget. Go ahead.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, he's small.
Okay,
Yeah.
got you.
Poquito. Go ahead.
So yeah, so these are all natural reactions to a perceived threat. Now, anxiety becomes a disorder when it's disorderly, right? So if it's
Thank you.
disorderly, if it's
I was
not
just gonna
in the
add,
right
like-
moment, right? If we're sitting on a podcast and now I'm over here like shaking, right? Or if we're sitting here in a meeting or you're at school or you're in bed, like right, trying to fall asleep, right? And you're like now your heart is racing and your mind is going.
Yeah, that's a
You know what I'm
problem.
saying? That's when anxiety becomes a disorder.
I have a question for either one of you to answer. Because like, for example, I grew up playing team sports, right? And Alex can probably
Absolutely.
speak the same in terms of like Brazilian jiu-jitsu and all that stuff. But is there, because there's bad anxiety, but then is there good anxiety? And I'll give you an example. Like, for example, like I pitched all the way up until college. So like I would get a little bit of anxiety, right? That stressor, right? And I would feel like the butterflies in my stomach and all that stuff. And in my opinion, just the way I perceived it, like that also helped me prepare in a positive way, right? Because it ensured that I took like my warm-up routine seriously. Or even like if I'm about to preach, like you get that anxiety right before you're about to be handed the mic or introduced, whatever, you know, however you end up preaching. Like, so in those moments before, for example, at least for me, some type of performance, or that's a bad word, but that's just the first
before
word
a
that
moment,
came.
like
before like an important
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
I can see why you would call it good anxiety, and I actually did want to add that when Jesus,
I'm glad you're bringing this up.
I think that those emotions or feelings that we experience, they just signify that our bodies are functioning properly.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
not a diagnosis, right?
Yeah.
Because like he explained, there are lots of experiences that we have that we feel nervous. That's nervous.
That's
nervousness.
stressor, positive
Right,
stress.
like you're about to do something very important. As a matter of fact, in ministry, when the young people come to do a retreat and they're like, I'm scared, I'm nervous. I'm like, that's a great feeling. That means you're doing something that's important. Like that's a typical thing that I may say.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't diagnose them with anxiety. Like for you to
Right.
be diagnosed with anxiety, you
Right.
have to meet a certain criteria.
Yes.
You have to have these symptoms for a certain amount of time, and it has to impair your functioning in at least 2 areas of your life.
At least two.
At least
2 areas.
So
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
talking occupational, social, like there's a lot of areas in your life that have to be impaired, meaning you're not able to function in them. So you may not be going to work, or you're taking a lot of days off, or you're isolating, you're not socializing with your friends, you're not eating, you're not sleeping. Like this has to really impair your daily life for it to
good.
be a diagnosis. So you feeling nervous, you not responding well to changes and things like that, those are all normal human behaviors and experiences.
Would it be
and we're just overly diagnosing people because we are feeling normal human things. And the same goes for trauma, which actually just a couple days ago, I was reading that in the last 2 years, trauma has become such overly used word that it's losing its meaning, and as a
real.
career, as a field, we are worried about that because trauma is such a real thing.
Absolutely.
That for it to lose its meaning is very, very scary.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. And by the way, we
I
can
mean,
even
maybe
say
that's all of these terms, like Jesus was saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and we could even say the same thing, like even about depression. Like we're so quick. Oh, I'm sad for a day and I'm depressed. Like, but like Jesus, I want to turn it over to you in terms of right. So like Abigail Schreier, right? She talks about bad therapy, and you spoke about like misdiagnosing or overdiagnosing is the more appropriate word, right? And again, yes, the answer is kind of like it depends on the patient, right? Because a good, and I guess, you know what, actually, that could be a talking point. Like, a good therapist will take a tailored approach. There's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all, right?
Correct.
But, you know, she speaks about bad therapy. She's written a book about it. And, like, you know, the book is called Bad Therapy, Why the Kids Aren't Growing Up. And, like, we're talking about how, you know, one of the things that she mentions is in therapy sessions where they're just focusing on their problems, right? And what ends up happening is, so, like, for example, according to the CDC, since 2013, pediatric PTSD diagnoses have doubled. And she attributes a lot of that to, based on her research, is in these quote unquote bad talk therapy sessions where all they're doing is like, how are you feeling about that problem? 6 months later, how are you feeling now 6 months later about that problem? How are you feeling a year later about the same problem that we've been talking about for a year? So, and I'm just giving a very limited example, but I want you to expand
But
a little
you know
bit.
what's funny? That's kind of like the movie scene, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Go to therapy is someone laying on a couch.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Right? We've made caricatures out of this whole
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think oftentimes one of the things I tell my patients is, if we're sitting here a year into it, and you know, even 6 months into it, and we're talking about the same exact thing, I'm talking about the same exact thing. If there are issues that you're struggling with, and we are ruminating on them, and it's just like we're just going in circles, and there is no direction. And we're just like
no growth, right?
There's just no growth, zero. I'm talking zero, right? Like I'll take 1%. Right. You know what I'm saying? But if we're at zero,
Yes, absolutely.
I'll take 1%. 1% is progress. I'll take one before I take zero any day. But if we're at zero, then we have to have a different conversation, right? We have to have a conversation around, what is your intention for therapy? Where do you see this going? How do you see this working? Am I a good fit for you, right? Because not every therapist is a good fit for that individual.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of conversations that have to happen surrounding that topic.
That's a great point.
Going back a step, going off of your definition about, is there such thing as positive anxiety? Because that was the question that was asked. There's no such thing as positive anxiety. You have positive stress and negative stress, which causes anxiety, but positive stress is like what you're talking about, sports, so forth. Is that safe to say? Going off your definition.
I just wouldn't use either of those terms. Like, I understand what he means. It's just, I would call it a normal human response.
Well, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because if you've watched the movie Inside Out recently, they proposed anxiety as, you know, one of the things, and great, we need to address it, but it was also a positive. And I was like, well, hold on. Actually, there's no such thing as positive anxiety, because anxiety is a negative response to something, a stress. Stressor, now there's positive stressor, that's what psychologists call it. But then a negative stressor would lead to anxiety.
Can we back up? What was the definition that you gave? And I don't know if you have a different definition, because I know I have different approaches too.
Yeah.
Because I want to rewind back to kind of think of it in light of that comment and idea and concept. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you said anxiety is
a response to a perceived danger.
Right.
So there are positive and negative responses to stress, kind of like what you were saying, right?
Yeah.
We have coping mechanisms that come from that perceived threat, right? So that's how I define. It's a simple definition of what that is.
Yeah, no, the definition is the same. It's in the DSM, right?
Right.
And anxiety is a disorder. What I'm saying about what Henry was describing is that that's a normal human response. So it's neither.
That's good.
It's
Right, it
neither
was just a
negative
clarification.
or,
So can
or
you tell them what the
positive. Anxiety,
DSM-4
it's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. We're
Right.
up to version 5 right now.
So it's a
list. So it's like the
Right.
disorder is listed, and it gives us the criteria, and that's how we
So all
diagnose.
psychologists have like kind of a reference, kind of how we were saying about like sort of like the catechism, sort
Right.
of.
A reference
And
line.
we absolutely cannot even
DSM.
diagnose
Right.
outside of that. That's why I'm saying, like, you don't even meet criteria. I cannot make that up. I must go by
So
that.
it starts with, I'm using your words, it starts with disorder. So an order that is out,
Correct.
okay, not moving in the right direction. So again, I'm going back to the definition of, I'm responding to Inside Out specifically, how anxiety was seen sometimes as a positive. And it's like, wait, hold on, that's actually wrong.
Correct.
Because stress can be a positive. Stress on the body will lead to anxiety. So anxiety is only a negative, because if it's disordered, that means it's not ordered correctly. right? Okay,
Right.
just want to make sure that I was right in that, because I've had these conversations outside of this, and I was like, no. Anxiety is not a positive. There's
We
no
have,
such thing as
like I said,
positive.
we have normal
Yeah.
human responses.
Absolutely.
And when those responses get out of order,
Absolutely.
they become disorders,
Okay.
and they're listed in this manual.
Thank you for clearing
Yeah.
that clarification and winning the arguments that I've had with some of my friends.
No,
If you're watching, I love y'all.
And here's the problem, right? And I like what you just said. You know, it's important. It's a normal response.
Yes.
But we are living in such a disordered time that normal is not normal anymore.
Yes.
Yo,
yes.
you understand?
And no,
Yeah.
and I have to say it.
Disordered time.
You know,
Yeah, no.
I have to speak into that, right? Because the fact of the matter is, it's like, well, it's normal to you. It's normal to you.
Right.
And wait a second, because we go back to the topic of relativism
Yep.
that we spoke about in another episode.
Yep.
And the fact of the matter is that there has to be common language.
Yep.
And we
Facts.
can't give into
yeah.
that nominalism,
Yeah.
right? And that nihilism, that nothingness, or just that free for all, like everything is acceptable.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, in therapy, in psychology, and this is what, you know, Schreier, right,
Yep.
speaks about, right, that she talks about in the little I've heard of her, is that we are now making things that were disordered ordered.
Right. Yes. And,
Oh, wow.
Yes. And
You
that's
know,
it.
and that bothers me
naming
because
them.
I've
I like
seen
what you
it.
said.
We're
Disordered
naming
time.
them.
I like that.
We're naming them as if they're ordered.
We're naming
And that's okay.
something
Yeah.
that is not normal
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah,
And so
we're
how
making
do
it okay.
you, as
Yes.
professionals,
Yes.
how do you, because I know it's hard for me,
Yep.
but how do you as professionals who believe that God is the center of their lives and have faith,
Exactly what
how
I
do
wanted
you
to
deal with that
Yep.
at the workplace?
Yes.
Because I know what your answer is.
Yeah.
Chocleta.
Start your own practice. No, but like seriously.
That's
No,
messed up.
but
Yeah.
seriously, like
Yeah.
even with your peers, how do you
good.
deal with
Yes.
something like that? I know it's a tough question.
Yeah.
But
I think a good therapist challenges their clients.
Thank you.
I think a good therapist is able to check
And
their
it's
clients.
good for challenge.
I think that's important. I think
Amen.
My line is like, I'm gonna challenge you. I'm about to start. I'm gonna challenge you.
Do you do the
I have
finger
to
too?
challenge that.
He does.
Sometimes.
You can tell you saw the whole facial motion.
I know.
That's the exact face I
That's gonna be his profile pic for his practice.
screenshot.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah. I think a good therapist challenges their clients, and I think there's names for that, right? Like there's avoidance. There are unhealthy coping mechanisms, as I was talking about earlier,
good.
and I think that's where that comes from is avoidance, right? Is that
Yeah.
we're so afraid to face the actual hurt, right? Because you need to touch a wound.
That's
in
where I
order
was
to
going
heal.
earlier.
Amen.
We're scared.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to touch
You
the
gotta
wound.
sometimes you have to wound
And
in order
especially
to
in
heal.
our culture,
Yes.
Latino
You
culture, it's
almost
like,
always have to wound.
I'm past that. I'm good. No. Just because you think you're good doesn't mean that your body thinks that you're
Correct.
good.
Correct.
Your body will deal with what's going on with you one way or another.
It's back to the inner room, right? It's like you can throw stuff in the closet for however long,
Facts.
but what happens after a while? After you've been stuffing things in the
You
closet,
got the
what happens?
cucarachas and the rats.
Absolutely.
You know?
And then-
Chupacabra. We got the chupacabra in there, right?
Yep. We got
cucuy.
the lion that walked in
Yeah,
earlier,
yeah,
right? Like we have so much stuff in that closet, and what happens to those doors eventually is that they're gonna break off the hinges, and they're gonna fall on you, right? So
The whole wall might fall.
Yeah.
exactly, the whole thing might fall. But I think that ultimately we can pretend. We can pretend all we want. We can pretend that this disorderly thing is actually orderly, but ultimately it's going to fall on us.
You're going to have
Stop
to do it in some way,
pretending.
shape, or form.
Yo, I'm gonna get
Yeah.
that new on a t-shirt, bro. Stop pretending.
Stop pretending.
Dang.
Yo, that's the
Yeah.
new joint right there.
AKA Drake. I'm sorry. Hey,
went
dude,
to
just
some-
set it up.
Wow.
It set it up. It literally just set it up. I was like, yo, I shouldn't
I
say
needed
that.
a
But
hey,
whatever.
hey,
Started
hey,
from
By the
Yeah,
time
You throw that
my
one in
mouth
there.
already just reacted. Yeah. Go ahead.
A lot of the work we do, if not all of it, is empathizing with our clients, right? But that doesn't mean that your feelings are real.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
Okay.
So like what you feel, like you're feeling it, it's a reality. Like, yes, I feel this way and it's true, you feel it.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that your experience is real. Like, so because I feel this, it is true. It might not be true.
So what I tell the teens is, because there was some language that you use, is just because you're feeling it, I'm going to validate your feelings.
Correct.
They are real feelings.
Absolutely.
That doesn't mean that they're right feelings.
Correct.
Make sense?
And so, like you were saying, you know, we often have to wound to heal. It's not sometimes. Most of the time, we have to wound.
Can you look at the camera and say that, please?
Nah, man, y'all don't understand how much
That's
guilt
very
this is
real.
Like,
No,
yeah.
because I say it from the
Yeah.
pulpit, and
For
I'm
real,
mean,
man. And I
I'm
see
vicious,
it.
and I'm
I
evil,
see it.
and people don't like coming to Bishop J because
Yeah.
you Bishop. Say that again, please.
Most of the time, we do have to wound you to heal you.
Yes.
And so you may feel it,
Gotta
and
open up
it
the
is
scab.
it is real. Your
Yeah.
feelings are real, and we will empathize. But your feelings are not always right,
No.
even though they are real.
So, and you know, I think we should go there in terms of, especially from the two of you as, again, the mental health professionals, right? If you can give those watching guidance or tips on how do they know they're receiving good mental health counseling. I'm sorry.
Therapy.
There you go.
Yeah.
Like, because one of the things that we've seen, and I will go there, you guys don't have to as a professional, you don't have to take that hit unless you want to.
We're allowed to hit you? That's all I heard.
But like, for example, there's so many unfortunate cases, I will say, where, for example, the feelings are fed into, right? And then, and again, I will take that hit, no one else here needs to, but then like, even what we see through therapy, my therapist, through therapy, I've discovered that I was born of the wrong sex, for example. Like, and
Finding the right therapist.
and those types of things.
Yeah.
Nah, and we need to address it,
That's
right?
tough.
Yeah,
And
no, that's real.
And for example, you guys mentioned last season, right? That it's not the end all be all finding a Catholic therapist. However, right, someone mentioned it earlier this episode, like, it is important being grounded, right, in our faith. So I want you guys to speak to that, because it's something like, even when I look for a psychologist, like,
that part.
I struggle with it, where it's like, when I'm looking for a therapist, I'm like, man, how do I know the advice that I'm going to get is going to be aligned with my faith? Only because, like, yes, I know my faith, and it's like, if he or she is telling me something, I'm like, well, I'm not seeing them anymore. But like, honestly, like, if I could, I would even like to avoid that. Like, just getting to know someone, and then it's like, oh, well, I can't see them anymore. You know what I mean?
Could it be what we were saying,
Yeah.
the whole thing about like the times being disordered? Even with this, like, they're kind of enabling people,
Right.
Oh, yeah, there's
to
a
live
difference.
in their disorder.
Well,
you would say.
I'll name it real quick. It's sin.
Yeah,
Right?
amen.
It's sin. Why? Like, look, in reality, right? And this is where this is very, very important, right? And I'm looking at you who are sitting at home. I'm looking at you, right? There are good cops. There are bad cops. There are good priests. There are bad priests. There are good doctors. There are bad doctors. There are good therapists. There are bad therapists.
Yeah.
For us to say no, it's a lie.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a lie. And the fact of the matter is that sin wounds, sin corrupts, and we don't speak about it. We don't address this. But there are therapists that have done damage.
Yes.
And they have made my job harder.
Yeah.
A lot
and
harder.
your jobs as well.
You know?
And so, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. The image that came to mind, because you were talking about hurt and all the different stuff, the image came to mind is like, if you have like broken something or something along those lines, it hurts when you go to the doctor because they have to replace it and so forth. Now, what I've seen, especially whenever it comes to mental health, is, you know, it happened so long ago, whatever, you know, that's the norm in our family. It happened to me. I've heard so many different things. Well, okay, you're past it, but has the wound healed correctly?
Yeah.
Has the bone been lined up correctly?
Because sometimes we got to break again.
And that's where the pain comes from. See what I'm saying?
I have personally worked with a lot of individuals who are part of the LGBT community. And I've had a lot of Catholic therapists ask me, you know, how can you do that? You know, isn't that against our faith, etc. I am not there to preach to anybody. I am not there to teach the catechism of the Catholic Church. I am there to love everybody as Christ loved them. If somebody comes to me, you know, struggling with their gender or worrying that they were born the wrong sex, etc., my only goal is to get to the bottom of that. Where does this come from?
Yep.
What is the identity crisis that you're going through? Why do you feel that way? You know, where did that start? It's to get to the bottom of that. You know, why do you feel that way? It's to really get to the root of that wound. It's not to do anything else. It's not to say, oh, well, you're going to hell. Well, no, you were meant to be this or you were meant to be that. It's to treat the wound. Absolutely. You feel wounded as this or as that. Where does that come from? And to walk with you through that. That's my only call.
And quick question, but how about if they don't feel wounded?
They do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just leave it right there.
If a therapist is sitting there giving you advice, they're a bad therapist.
Oof, I like that.
What was that? Repeat that again.
Thank you.
Whoa.
That's good.
If a therapist is sitting there giving you advice, they are a bad therapist.
That is the first sign of bad therapy is they're giving you advice.
If they're giving you advice, they're a bad therapist. Therapy is not an advice session. It is not.
Not a life coach.
We're not life coaches. We're not life coaches. There are therapists who are also life coaches, right? But we're not doing life coaching. We're doing therapy. And therapy is rooted, again, it sounds like a conversation. It's not a conversation.
Yes, I like that.
Right? So if this therapist is going in there and telling you about what their values are and what they hold true, right? Like that is not about,
y'all listening to this?
It's no longer about you, sir, ma'am. It's no longer about you. It's about them. It's about that therapist. So you better run the other way, please.
We are helping
fast.
you make connections. We're helping you with insight. You have to come to it on your own. So that when you and I are done, you're able to thrive on your own.
What is that called again? Neural
pathways.
Because if I continue to give you advice, then you are dependent on me, and you won't be able to thrive on your own.
But actually, and I want to respond to that because so many times, like there's extremes, right? And we've spoken about how extremes are bad. There are those that, unfortunately, like in our minority communities, like we're all minorities here. Like it's the other way where it's like, oh, you can pray away, and I know we spoke about it last episode, like last season. Like so many people are like, we can pray it away, or no, eso es pa loco, like what you guys mentioned last season. But then on the opposite end of that spectrum, right, there are those that feel like they feel incapacitated without their therapist. Like they feel like, oh, I can't make this decision without talking to my therapist about it, for example.
Right.
I mean, granted, there are clients who do become very attached because like, wow, this person helped me so much. I'm a better person because of him or her. That is normal. But to feel like I can't make a decision or I don't know what to do because they give me advice, I go do it and so on and so forth. That's not what therapy is. You're supposed to be able to grow mentally, cognitively, and say like, well, I know how to make insights now. I know how to make connections because he or she taught me how to do that. Now I can do that on my own. Even if I prefer them to be with me, I know how to do it on my own because they taught me how to do it.
I'm teaching you how to fish, not giving you the fish.
I'm not giving you fish, I'm teaching you how to fish, correct.
Right, the image that came to mind when we were talking earlier was John 8, the woman caught in adultery. Because what we're talking about, we're going back to the LGBT thing, is the act, right? Because that's really what the catechism teaches, the act itself. Now, notice the image that came to mind was Jesus bent down with the woman. And everybody wanted to tell her that she was wrong. In fact, they were right whenever they were saying, shouldn't we stone her? That was the law. But notice Jesus, didn't even answer the question. And what he did was he got on his knees with the woman. I've sat with this in prayer and imagine what it feels like to be a woman, to be somebody who's heard about Jesus. Everybody's talking about him, and you finally get to meet him, and you're thrown in front of everybody, and what that must feel like. And I like to think that Jesus and what you guys are doing, because I'm a strong advocate of spiritual direction. I'm a strong advocate of mental health therapy, and prayer for that matter. But sitting with this, and Jesus getting on his knees before he even answers, because the law said this, and they were right, is a way that Jesus is with you in your wounds. And notice he didn't address the act until the very end. And if you notice, it says he looked up at her. So my mind pictures our Lord on his knees, so low, And she's crying because she's on the floor. So think about how low he had to be. He's literally in the dirt with this woman. And I can imagine, because him being fully divine and fully human, he's empathizing with her, that pain of being ostracized. And so he looks up at her, and I like to think that that's how God wants us to be to people, is just seeing them first and acknowledging who they are and whose they are.
As children.
As children of God. And there's a lot in the look, right? We all know this. We have Latino parents, My dad used to be able to speak like, yo, he gonna kill everybody in this room by a look, And my mom would be able to speak like, man, I love you by a look. And I like to think that like our Lord just sits there and just looking with this, I love you. Which is why she was able to get up and walk away. Notice not until the end, and I try to tell parents this so much, like, my kid is doing this. I'm like, man, Senora, thank you.
Just love them.
Just love them. And I'm not saying accept.
Right.
And that's why I say that there is a wound, because one, they came to therapy, so they are looking for something.
Absolutely.
And two, they're telling you, I feel like I'm the wrong gender. So those two things, there's already something, there's a problem. And they're stating that something is not right. So that in and of itself is a wound or an issue. So that's why I'm saying there's something.
Case.
There's a hurt, there's a wound, or whatever we want to call it. And that's why I'm saying just love them in that issue and walk them through it.
I don't want to steer us away, but I've been thinking about this for a while, right? Because I think we keep doing this because we throw stuff out. A little while ago, you said avoidant, right? And this is one of the things you've given me, and then I was able to bring back to therapy, and just attachment styles and how we interact and move through the world, right? Because I think we can do that when those issues come up, when those hurts come up, whatever. We how we perceive, and we all have a way that we go about that. Right. But I think we should define that or give some light to it so people can look at that.
What part of that? Avoidance?
Yes, but I think maybe go even through the different attachment styles and so forth, just a little overview of that thought.
Sure. Attachment styles. Attachment styles are, the way I kind of describe it in a nutshell, is this idea of how we interact with other people directly correlates to trauma that we've experienced as children, or just the way we've lived our lives, right? Okay. So there's 4 different attachment styles. There's secure attachment, there's anxious attachment, there's avoidance attachment, and there's disorganized attachment, which is kind of a mixture of avoidant and anxious. And secure attachment is kind of the idea of this is what the kind of attachment style we would all like to have, right? So we are all walking around with different attachment styles, right? Some of us may be more secure. Some of us may be a mix of avoidant and anxious, right? So there are insecure attachment styles and secure attachment styles, right? And so the idea is that if you've been wounded, for example, let's say you've had an experience as a child where you've been invalidated a bunch. Every time you spoke up, your parents shut that down or told you to shut up, right? Or told you to be a man. That's another big one, right?
Seen and not heard.
Right. And so we grow up to kind of hold that back a little more as adults, right? And so we become avoidant, right? Because now my feelings don't matter. What matters is this situation I got going on, right? And so now I need to throw everything in that closet, and it doesn't matter anymore, right? Because nobody else cares for me, and that's how the world works, right? So that's how we start interacting with other people, and it hurts our relationships with each other.
Right. And not to, you hit something, you said something, but not to and if we want to go down that road, that's fine. But I was talking with you, Denise, about this earlier, about men and mental health in men. And you talked about shoving it in and shoving everything in a closet. And then, because of the purpose, you're moving forward. I see this a lot on social media, and I hear this amongst men a lot now. I provided for my family, I've done this, I've done that. But what about me? So I asked you, Denise, earlier, and this is for a different episode, men's ministry and so forth, but men as a whole, is this proper to say that men as a whole are the ones that are least deal with these issues and almost kind of ostracized, if you will? And this is across all cultures, but especially in a minority Latino culture, What would be you guys' take on that? Men being the one least talked about and so forth.
Yeah, that's why they have the highest suicide rate, though it's among white males. They have
At
the
about what
highest.
age?
In their 50s.
And notice the age. Why would you say
Males
the
in
age is
their
important?
50s. Because they've been bottling up for so long. So
See
they
how
can
this
withstand
works?
a lot, but
Yeah.
in their 50s is like,
Notice what it is I said. Like, I raised my family. I did what was right. You know, I'm there. I provided. I prayed with. And what about me?
yep.
Yeah.
You know, I've been hearing this way more on social media. Some of the positive affirmations on the other side of that is like, you know, like, hey, you know, you're doing a good job. I'm proud of you. I see you. You know, I have friends. I walk in certain places. I have friends, African-American friends who are like, yo, I see your kids. I want you to know, randomly, they'll walk up to me randomly, see your kids, so forth. I want you to know you're a good father. I appreciate you. I'm like, yo, for real, appreciate you.
Yeah. Yeah. Men don't go to therapy.
Yeah.
I can't tell you enough how many men I see walking around that could probably use some therapy. And
That's definitely
oftentimes-
inside of the church also.
Oh, absolutely. We're so many insecure men walking around.
Say that again.
Insecure
Bro, say that again,
And they
please.
hide behind aggression, right? We hide our insecurities behind being aggressive, right? And being aggressive is not the same as being assertive, right? A strong man is assertive,
Big
not
difference.
aggressive. There's a huge difference, and that aggressiveness is a form of avoidance, another coping mechanism, right?
Another attachment style.
Another attachment style, right? So we have a lot of insecure men walking around, and it is because we don't address these issues. We just kind of like allow men to just kind of sit around and just kind of take it, right? Because men don't cry, right?
Yep.
For some reason.
Yep, I remember hearing as a child, like my pop would be like, yo, women do that. You be all right.
Yeah.
You wanted to add something, Brendan?
No. I mean, I think all of that stuff is good. What I was thinking is even going back to what we were talking about with the developmental stages. Could that be? There's a moment where you get to this point, and now you're reflecting back.
That's good.
And you're recognizing there's no fulfillment in that. And that's where could that, I mean?
Yeah, could this be some of
this
the
is my mind
midlife crisis?
pondering, honestly.
Yeah,
as I was
no,
putting
this
those
is
things together.
us processing out loud. But could that be some of the obviously undealt with and so forth, but like, you know, we give this a term like the midlife crisis, right? That's 40, 50, right in that area. You see what I'm saying? Could
That's
this
a
be
good way
some
to
of
put it because it's like a man is just always expected to give. Like you're
Right.
just this provider, just be a dad, just be a husband, just be this.
Just be a bishop.
give, and then
Yeah.
and then you get to
Spiritual
your
father.
50s,
Yeah,
and
you're right.
it's kind of
Yeah.
like you're kind of done giving. You know you fathered, you were a husband, and now what? And so then that's the age, 50s,
And you
where
notice-
your midlife crisis, suicide rates go super
And you
high.
notice you said Anglo, right?
Yeah.
I want to make sure. So that does not mean, because as a whole, would you say, if a survey goes out, put it like this, it's a different question. If a survey goes out, is it known for Latinos and minorities to fill out that survey, whatever it is?
I mean, there's always that question, like, you know, is it that minorities are not filling out their surveys? Is it that it's not reported?
Yep.
But then there's also the aspect that faith is a big reason why suicide rates in minorities are very low.
Yeah.
So there's
Okay, so that's a good balance.
Oh, that's
That's
It
what's
is.
up. That's dope.
Yeah.
I've never
That's
known that. Thank you.
interesting.
so it's not because
I think
they're
that's
not
good.
suicidal, like they don't have the desire, is that they're like, oh my gosh, no, that's so against my faith. Like I would never, even though I want to.
It just
Oh,
rules
that's
it out.
Really
Yeah.
Yeah,
interesting.
man,
And
that's
so,
good.
And
Yeah.
so I think, you know, as we put a bow into this, just want to throw out the huge disclaimer, like this is not even the tip of the iceberg.
By
This is
far,
like
come on,
the tip
yeah.
of the tip of the
Yeah.
iceberg.
Oh, we just landed on the iceberg.
Yeah, no,
We just found
not
it.
even, bro. We just found it on
This
the
is
helicopter.
like-
Yo, there's an
This is
iceberg
like the
there.
Titanic with the glacier. All you see is the front part, but the glacier below the water is huge.
Yeah,
This is just
and,
the tip.
And so, you know, I want to thank both you, Denise, and you, Jesus. Number one, for coming on again and dealing with us again. But then number two, and most importantly, you guys are doing God's work. I firmly believe that you
Amen.
guys are doing
It's a
God's
ministry.
work.
It's
Yeah,
a ministry. Yeah.
and with that, I want to leave you guys. We'll drop it in the link. We'll drop the link in the description below the
Before
video.
you do that, Henry, just look,
Where?
because it's the tip of the iceberg, want to encourage you guys to go find a professional if you need one. Or
Yeah.
if something in this like triggered or sparked something, look,
Go
like you
find a
need to go
professional. And it's
figure that
okay
out.
if you're a parent to go
Yeah,
ask
like-
your sons, daughters, whatever it may be, hey, do you want to talk to somebody about that?
Right, and I mean, even like
Besides
some
me?
of those terms are
And the
thrown
youth
around.
minister?
Right
Yeah.
away, we might go to the internet and try to
professional.
learn and do
Yeah.
that. And I don't think it's bad to like look it up, but don't try to like go find someone that can actually walk you through that in the right way.
Before we close,
Yeah.
and I know this kind of putting you both of you on the spot, because I know last time we were like right at like 40 minutes, 45 minutes, something like that. And I know like if you guys are like how I am, like, dang it, I should have said this, you know? Is there anything like in, you know, these last few moments that you want to impart to the parents, teens, young adults, so forth, that maybe we've talked about and you want to expand a little bit more on, or like I want to make sure, you know, does it make sense?
I want to say don't give up on finding help, because even though like there's all this awareness and advocacy now, it is still so incredibly hard to find help. It's either
It really is,
an
man.
insurance
Yeah.
issue,
Yeah.
everybody's
That part.
overbooked,
Yeah.
people are not calling back. Like I have clients who are trying to find psychiatry like for medication management, and it's nobody's calling back, or insurance are being funny. So just don't give up. Like keep calling, keep checking places, call your insurance. Like you're gonna find somebody, you're gonna find a match. Just don't give up. It's not that it's not meant to be, or just keep asking around. Ask your friends who already see somebody and they like their therapist, like, hey, can you refer me? Sometimes that's the easiest way.
Right.
So just don't give up. Like just keep trying. You will find somebody.
So, I would say if you're in a position where you are feeling hopeless, like if you're feeling anxious and you don't feel like you really know which way to turn, maybe you're in that buffer period trying to find a therapist and you don't really know which way to go, or maybe therapy isn't even something you have access to for any reason. Just know you're not alone.
That's good.
Like, just know you're not alone. Turn to community. Turn to your people. You have people that love you. There are people that love you. There are people that are willing to love you. Turn to Christ. I mean, Christ is walking with you, whether you feel Him or not. Turn to the Holy Spirit. Turn to prayer. It is not just prayer. It is not just therapy. It is not just one thing. It's not just family. It is the fullness of all these things. You have people that are willing to love you. Take that help. Don't feel like you can do it alone, especially for men. We were just talking about men. Don't feel like you can do it alone. Ask for help.
Amen.
Ask for help. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, did you want to add any more? Okay. So before we go, and this is my youth minister hat switching on real quick. So I've realized through the years is a lot of people learn a profession because they see somebody in that profession that looks like them, they can resonate with, and like, yo, I never thought about that, right? You see here that this is a career path. Really good one, really good ministry one. So, you know, if you're a teen, high school, so forth, then you're thinking, or young adult, like, hey, kind of what should I study? This may be one of the avenues, right? And again, it's ministry. Like if you do it correctly, prayer and, you know, the balance. No,
You don't
please.
have to compromise your faith either. I just want to.
Boom.
A lot of
Say that
people
again.
feel like
Yeah.
they're compromising their faith. Like that's my specialty is spiritual direction, because when I finished
what's up.
my psychology part of it, I got my certification in spiritual direction.
That's
so
real.
You can't even.
So there's schools that
focus.
do that.
Yeah, I went to Fordham for spiritual
See,
direction.
there's schools that do that.
After my
Yeah, yeah,
master's.
yeah.
So
And by the way,
you can
Fordham,
even.
Dietrich von Hildenbrand taught there too. Just love philosophy. Go ahead.
So you can even focus, like if you're worried about, I know a lot of people who are like, oh, I want to do that, but I don't want to compromise my faith. You don't have to, like, you know, get your studies. Yes, you're going to encounter a lot of things while you're studying. Ignore that. Just get your degrees, learn, and then, you know, practice in the way that doesn't compromise your integrity and your faith. You can do it. We're doing it. We know lots of other people who are doing it.
Absolutely.
And if you want to specialize in it, you know, you can.
Unfortunately, what happens in school, one of the reasons why I'm saying this, unfortunately, what happens in school, and I've learned this because I've gone down this road, is when you're in high school, they don't really give you intro to psychology or child psychology or any of these kind of things. So it's never never even on the radar. It's not until like, maybe you might take an elective and maybe you might get a good professor and, okay, I like it, right? Like, and it's funny because like if you do this in our school systems, focus mainly on the mathematics, sciences, the hard sciences. So you'll see kids like, oh, I want to be, an engineer and so forth. But I've talked to you and you love serving people, like, right. But again, they haven't been introduced to it, right? So this is one of the reasons why I'm making it a point, kind of segue here.
They will also never tell you that a bachelor's is harder than a master's. Anybody who has a master's will tell you a bachelor's is way harder because there's all these.
Say that part again. I think they need to hear that because I tell them.
So that's why you have more than one master's.
I'll be honest with you, she's right. Yeah, no, she's right, man.
A bachelor's is way harder than a master's. Just push through the bachelor's and you will make it.
I couldn't agree with you anymore. Yeah.
All right, so just to wrap things up, I'm gonna leave you guys with the link at the bottom of the video. But Pope St. John Paul II, he actually has an article in the newspaper of the Holy See. It's called Le Osservatore Romano. Check my pronunciation.
Okay, I see him.
He's eating that Italian food.
I know. Last night, that was that Italian food. That's what it was. La Parmigiana.
That chicken parm. It's crazy because we've spoken about transcendentals, right, and all this stuff. And so he goes on to say, this is back in 1996, he says, Christ took all human suffering on himself, even mental illness, as it configures a sick person to Christ and gives him a share in his redeeming passion. And just another thing, because I really do believe that you guys are doing God's work. And so I want to say to you guys, if you're suffering from a mental illness, your mental illness does not create an insurmountable distance
it doesn't
to
define
God.
You.
You, even in your mental illness, you are a child of God.
So you're never too far from God.
Yes.
You're never too far away, even if you have a mental illness.
Yes. That's about it.
Amen.
Can I just say, I just want to thank all of you, seriously, and I want to thank you, like Brandon, Alex, I want to thank you, Henry, Jesus, Denise, because we are providing a platform that I don't think has really ever been there.
No, I was thinking about this earlier.
I think we're doing something that is so special right now, and we're reaching in a new way. So I want to, from the bottom of my heart, as a bishop, as a leader of the church, just thank you, because I've told you this many times, how you support me and my ministry is so important to me as a man, as a priest, as a bishop. And so I'm grateful to you guys, and Jesus, we haven't chopped it up as much still. It's going to happen. But this is what we're talking about. This is a community.
Yeah, we
thank you very much, because this is needed.
No, we thank you. And I'm going to say this prophetically, and you're going to be like, Justo, you need to edit this part. We are in the presence. Well, I'm not joking when I say this. We're in the presence. I was praying about this morning. I was like, should I say that? But yeah. And it's funny that we're at the Archbishop Fulton Sheen Center. I do believe that you will, and you are, and will be the modern version of the Archbishop Fulton Sheen. I'll be honest with you, man. So thank you.
Amen.
Really.
Amen.
All right. And I know you're going to hit me afterwards.
Yes.
He didn't respond because the camera.
So, it's Saint in the city, y'all.
We gotta go.
We out here, y'all. Thank y'all. See y'all in the next one.
All right. Peace out, everybody. God bless you guys. Peace.
What? This is Sainthood in the city.